This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here with your latest Meteo Mundo forecast. Hope you're having a great one. This is going to be your tropics update for Tuesday, October the 24th. And we still have a couple of areas of interest to go over for our friends. We need to talk about what's happening in Central America with TD21. We still have Hurricane Tammy that could impact Bermuda late in the week. And there's going to be some high rain chances across portions of the Caribbean here and even portions of the Bahamas as we go through the week. I'm going to cover that as well. We'll start you off though with a broad look at Tammy, moving up to the north, eventually potentially north and west towards Bermuda. We'll get to Tammy in just a second, but I do want to start with what's happening right now with TD number 21. That one is the one that's moving across Nicaragua right now. Now, this is actually going to be the last advisory from the Hurricane Center. Mentioned it yesterday. It was always going to be short-lived. It's already back on shore. It's weakened. It was never about the wind with TD21. It was about the rain. And even though this is the last advisory as of 11 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time on this Tuesday, the rain threat will continue with TD21 for the next couple of days, especially for Nicaragua and the southern and the eastern sides of Honduras. The rain overall is going to be even more widespread than that, but that's where the Hurricane Center is really highlighting the potential for localized flash flooding and mudslides in higher terrain. Look at the plume of moisture coming on shore with TD21, especially again through Nicaragua. It's going to be headed towards Managua as well, but again, a little bit more excessive rain east of Managua. When you get up towards Tegucigalpa there in Honduras, overall avoiding the heaviest rain. The eastern sides of Honduras will see the heavier rain. And we do have some moisture coming into Costa Rica near San Jose. But again, the Hurricane Center is really highlighting areas north of Costa Rica, and especially again, Honduras in the south, Nicaragua in the south, in the eastern sides of Honduras. But just an extensive amount of moisture coming in. The atmosphere is basically water loaded. It's like a wet sponge, and very efficiently as it moves inland and especially gets lifted into the higher terrain, we're going to see that rain really become heavier in nature, and that's why we have that potential flash flooding threat. Now again, this system in a very broad way will move into the eastern Pacific. Things will begin to improve late tomorrow, but again, heavy extensive rainfall is likely in the area here, and again, we've got to watch out for some flooding. But you can see that a larger portion of Central America will get rain out of this broad area, but the excessive rain looks to be confined to, again, portions of Nicaragua and Honduras, but down towards San Jose, certainly still the opportunity for some decent rainfall. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at it here. I'm going to switch over to our total precipitation product on this model and just look at one time frame here. Going to go out 1 day from now. So the additional amount of rain that we expect, again, the highest rainfall totals between now and tomorrow afternoon, on Wednesday afternoon, are going to potentially be right along the eastern coastline of Nicaragua. And you can see that the GFS model is painting additional 8 inches of rain in this area. Again, up to a foot overall storm total is possible in portions of the eastern sides of Nicaragua. So very extensive rainfall there, and it just follows the coastline. But you can see that bullseye. As you get into Honduras, we do start to cut off that heavier rain. But what we're concerned about, again, is in the higher elevations here. You get to the higher elevations, and even a few inches of rain that could fall there could lead to some of those life-threatening mudslides. So we'll continue to monitor the situation. But again, as far as a tropical system, that's going to be the last advisory from the Hurricane Center on TD21. But again, still some heavier rainfall is possible, and even down towards San Jose there, even towards Costa Rica. Look, we could get a few inches of rain there. And again, some of the higher elevations, maybe 1 to 2 up to 3 in an isolated fashion. So that's the big story with TD21. And again, it'll be moving into the eastern sides of the Pacific. So let's break down again the potential impacts going forward. This is directly from the Hurricane Center's last advisory on TD21. For Nicaragua, 4 to 8 inches of rain, a maximum of 12 inches is possible. For the southern and the eastern sides of Honduras, it's 2 to 4 inches, maybe a maximum of up to 6. And again, those rains are likely to produce some areas of flash flooding and mudslides in areas of higher terrain. Please check in with your local officials and your local government for any detailed information in your areas. We're going to get to Hurricane Tammy coming up in just a second, but I want to start off with a new feature here on Meteo Mundo, and that is our sunrise and sunset photos or just a gorgeous photo somewhere across where you live, if you go to the community tab of Meteo Mundo, you'll see that we've asked you to send you these photos. And our very first one comes from Mike Algier from Cane Bay in St. Croix. And Mike, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. There's a running back for the Atlanta Falcons named Tyler Algier. He spells his last name just like yours. So I hope that's the way that you pronounce it as well. Thank you very much, Mike. What a gorgeous photo there from St. Croix. And again, we want to see your photos. All you got to do is send us that to mymeteomundo@gmail.com. But if you want that email again, just go to the community tab of Meteo Mundo. You'll see all the information there, the post that we put up. But again, thank you very much, friends. We appreciate that. And Mike, again, thank you for your photo. We are trying to create a community here at Meteo Mundo. Some of these photos is a way to do that. Also, thank you very much for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing as well if you want to be a part of our Meteo Mundo family. Let's get into what's happening with Hurricane Tammy. Again, Tammy continues to get sheared a bit as it's moving up towards the north. And again, the Hurricane Center is still trying to nudge Tammy back towards Bermuda by the end of the week. I've shown you this water vapor imagery here the last couple of days. And again, you see Tammy is really beginning to fight some dry air. This was a massive trough that came off the United States East Coast, and that drier air has worked its way all the way south and east of Bermuda. Even for October, that is pretty impressive. Again, the red that you see here is the western periphery of the Atlantic Ridge of high pressure, that Bermuda High we call it. It will begin to nudge back west, and basically under a weakness, if you will, of that ridge, the models are beginning to swing Tammy back towards Bermuda. Now, I will say that more models are in agreement with taking Tammy back towards the west, and I'll show you that coming up. But as we get past day 3, as we move into our Thursday and Friday, and especially into the weekend, Tammy looks to become post-tropical, meaning that it's going to lose its tropical characteristics. Now, you might think that's a good thing, but the problem is the wind field with Tammy will more than likely expand as it becomes post-tropical. We won't get the highest maximum sustained winds that we had with Tammy, but again, those core winds were so close to the center of circulation. Believe it or not, the overall wind threat might increase a bit as Tammy becomes post-tropical, because that wind field really expands as we lose the tropical characteristics at the lower levels. That being said, again, Tammy does look to be headed towards Bermuda, but hopefully continuing to weaken. And even our model here, you see these blues, those are tropical depression winds on the model. Even those begin to fade as we get closer to Bermuda. But for our friends, for Bermuda, late week and into the weekend, I'm going to keep a very close eye on it for you. Let's look at the future track rain here with Tammy. I'm going to throw this model on. And again, this is the GFS model. I'm going to actually take it out a couple more days than what I had it here. Let's go ahead and make sure we get out towards the weekend. What do you say, about 120 hours? That looks good to me. All right, we'll put this into motion, and you'll start to see Tammy right up north. Now, as it gets north again, it's going to start interacting with the drier air and the weakness in the Atlantic ridge of high pressure off towards the east, which should shove it back towards the west. So you can see, again, the GFS model is now in agreement, bringing Tammy back towards Bermuda, but as a much weaker system. So that's the rain potential with Tammy as we get towards the weekend. Let's take a look at the wind potential, because I mentioned how the wind field is going to expand, at least initially. So let's swing on over to the wind gust product here. Throw this on. We'll loop it again, and I'm going to zoom out, and you'll start to see exactly what I've mentioned. Again, we start to see this wind field as Tammy becomes post-tropical beginning to expand in nature. So we're starting to see those reds kind of get a little bit wider just before it gets to Bermuda, but hopefully beginning to wind down just as it starts to impact the island. Again, the wind potential would be higher, but thankfully it becomes more and more post-tropical. Now, it's interesting, the GFS model does kind of sit Tammy near Bermuda as we get into early next week. That's something I'll be monitoring. There is not a lot of steering current out there early in the week. So it's a potential, as Tammy begins to dissipate, that this could be hovering around for a while and potentially near Bermuda, but we'll keep an eye on it for you. But again, you can see that those core winds really begin to dissipate, and that's why it's post-tropical. You've got to have the strongest winds near the center of circulation, but as these wind fields expand, we actually start to see the strongest winds away from the center that was left over. We get them actually in some of the outer bands and some of the thunderstorms, and that's one reason and one definition, if you will, of a storm becoming extratropical or post-tropical. But again, we'll continue to monitor that with Tammy. Now, I want to get back to the broad perspective here and talk about some other areas. Let me first of all swing this back to the satellite, because I do want to mention here, as I zoom into this area and the western sides of the Caribbean, the Hurricane Center is not highlighting it for any tropical development. It's certainly a lot of moisture. I'll watch it as it heads west. But again, at this point in time, the Hurricane Center hasn't even put an area of interest there over the next week. But again, moisture is a big story for us here. So let's take a look at the broad perspective. Again, throw our product back into motion. Okay, nope, we're good. We're on the reflectivity. So I do want to, again, highlight that, especially in the Caribbean, look at this surge of moisture coming back in. Sorry about that, zoomed in a little too close. So just look at this surge of moisture coming back in as we get towards the weekend. So I think we're going to be talking about the potential for some heavier rain back again in portions of the Leeward Islands, overall the Lesser Antilles, and even portions of the Greater Antilles as well. The ABC Islands would be included in that, Abaco, Bonaire, and Curacao. And again, just a good slug of moisture coming through. And really overall, rain chances for all of our areas are going to be a little bit higher for the week ahead. You can still see there's some scattered rain for portions of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. We're going to get at least a few showers passing over the Bahamas. This might be one of our drier locations. The Bahamas in general, the air again is relatively dry right now, but even some moisture there. But again, you can just see that overall, we have very moisture laden air across all of the Caribbean, especially at this point in time, the Eastern Caribbean sneaking back into the Western Atlantic. So that's something to highlight, friends, over the week ahead, and something as we go forward in the week, I'll continue to break down significantly for you. Again, thanks again for tuning into our latest Meteo Mundo video. Thank you for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and supporting the channel in the ways that you see below. Appreciate you. We'll see you back here next time at Meteo Mundo.